car is a 1947 Ford DeLuxe Sportsman Convertible. You know, the war had taken place. During the war, they didn't make cars in 1943, 44, or 45. Well, it was a Saturday morning in the springtime of 1946, and I was kind of getting to know that cars are kind of cool. The fortunate thing for us was we lived in Detroit, where they were all made in those days. And I went kind of hand in hand with my dad down to the Ford dealership, and I was just 11 years old. There was a 1946 Ford Sportsman Convertible, which I had never seen. And I was just taken to it. As a kid, I couldn't believe cars could be that neat. Salesman, who's also the owner of the dealership, they were so small in those days, you know. He came out and he says, would you like to buy that car? And my dad said, well, I don't know. He says, well, you can't anyhow, because there's a waiting list. There's 6 people on the waiting list to get these cars. My dad, he said, put me on the waiting list. So we went home with our name on the waiting list, and the story starts from there. They did call us when it rolled around to July of 47, and August was going to be their 25th wedding anniversary. Well, they said, well, let's just make that our wedding anniversary present. I remember them saying that. Well, it was driven by the family. I wasn't old enough to drive, but I did drive it. But then I took my driver's test in it, and I drove it then. I have an older sister, and she drove it to college, and she drove it to her job, and she drove it. My mom and dad drove it, and we drove it for 10 years till 57. And in 57, it was kind of used up, and I was even through driving it because I was going off to school then. From 57 to 79, it was stored. And then at that time, it had become my car. So I took it out of storage and started restoring it. And by the time I got through restoring it, it was 1988. If you put it in percentages, I think I probably did 30 to 40% of the work. Coordinating it is a big job. And then I hired the people to do the things I couldn't do. And most of my parts are all original parts. Obviously, you know what's been happening with it since 1988. It looks as it does now, and it's been in my use, and we use it all the time and have for the last 20 years. Oh, I want to tell you something. This car rides good. I mean, it's smooth. I forgot it's just a little car too. I mean, it's not that big. 3,900 cars were made in the 3 years, 46, 47, and 48. It's a 239 cubic inch engine. It has 100 horsepower, as opposed to the other V8 that they put in the other cars, which only had 85 or 90. Standard shift. There was no automatic transmissions offered at that time. It's a convertible that's been kind of cut down. In other words, they cut the outside flashing off or finish off, and they built the wood sides to fit over it. But it is solid, and it's part of the structure of the car. The wood is framework, which is maple. And the inserts, the panels in the maple are mahogany. It's maple and mahogany. And interesting here, every car that was made, every Sportsman that was made, has a piece of bird's eye maple in the construction of the car. My car has one on the side. It's leather interior. It has wood grain dashboard to match the wood on the outside, which is really unique, and it has a beautifully designed dashboard. It has some plastic in it, which Henry Ford was probably the innovator of using plastic, and he was trying this out. And the grill over the radio is just beautiful, and it's original. You had to buy your radio, and you had to buy your heater. And then there was a whole string of options. The car, as it sits there today, is just purely original, with all the things on it that it had coming from the factory. The people that grew up during the era of the car, which they had a neighbor or their uncle or somebody else had a Woody. It might not have been a Sportsman Convertible, but it was a Woody, station wagon, or there was a Woody in the family, and they can go on for hours. And then you can see them just saying, oh, why'd they ever get rid of it, you know? Well, of course, it's mostly unique because there's very few of them left. But it's unique because it's stayed in our family for all these years. My buddy. You won't believe what a world it's given us. We go down the street, everybody high-fives you and thumbs up and all that stuff. I mean, you don't really need that, do you? But it's there all the time. My dad bought this car in '47. So really? We go out touring and we go out to shows. We don't go daily shopping in the car. But even if we did do that and stop by Walgreens or something, somebody's giving us a high five coming over, wanting to rub the wood. I mean, it's just like a Disney World attraction. So it's just fun.